We live now. Okay, and welcome to the very first live stream on the Blind Advocate channel. Today we're going to discuss the NDIS, the good, the bad, the ugly. I think it's important because there's so many inconsistencies with the NDIS. There's a lot of misinformation out there as well. I thought it was really good to talk about it, and if we can get some people up here into the chat and get some different points of view, would be really good. I was one of the first people to go onto the NDIS in the area I live in. Over the first 18 months, I had 6 different LACs, and they were all totally useless. They had no experiences working with people with disabilities. They had no qualifications in working with people with disabilities. And I just want to be upfront and honest at this stage. I think the NDIS has been the greatest gift people with disabilities has ever been given in this country. It's been able to allow me personally to get out into my community a lot more than I have been in the past and do things, learn new things with the help of the support workers. However, the first 3 years were absolutely dreadful. I was diagnosed with a tumour in the spinal cord in 1989. I contracted MS in 1992. I lost my sight in 1998. And in all of those situations, I never suffered with anxiety attacks until I had to deal with the NDIS. It was dreadful. Every time I applied for something, I was knocked back. I took things up to the line of command, up to the tribunal. I had a meeting with the NDIS lawyer, someone from the NDIS complaints section, and it was the whole saga was absolutely brutal. It's one of the worst things I've experienced in my whole life. So it's really important that we're able to talk about these things. Like I said, before I got onto the NDIS, I got onto the disability pension in January 1990, and I basically sat around the home for the next 30 odd years. Did nothing. I watched a bit of TV, got up, went and did some things in the computer, went back to the TV, went back to the computer. Didn't go out very much. Couldn't afford to go out very much. So I basically sat at home. And when I got on the NDIS, like I said, the first 3 years were absolutely brutal and cruel. Working with people who have had no experience, no education. I've had multiple discussions with people working for the NDIS. And I say out of 6 people I spoke to about when I applied for different items, one in specific is a talking microwave, which was denied constantly. I rang up. This lady from the NDIS rang me up and said I couldn't get it. She said, we have staff who are vision impaired and they don't like the voice, so you can't have it. And I said, well, I'm not vision impaired. And she said, well, you can't have it. And I said, yeah, but I'm blind. I'm not vision impaired. Do you actually know the difference between being blind and vision impaired? And she couldn't answer me. The most basic fundamental thing, like the difference between being blind and vision impaired, she could not answer. I had to tell her the difference. So that's the sort of people we've got working on the NDIS. Hopefully it gets better. I really do. But while we keep employing people as LACs who have had no experience doing that sort of work, people with disabilities are going to continually hit their head against a brick wall. Every time I applied for something, the LAC would ring back and say, I know you were denied. And I'd say, oh, why is that? And they said, oh, I don't know. They just said you couldn't have it. And I said, well, what did you say? No, well, I said nothing. What could I say? I said, well, you could have argued the point for me. That's your job. You're the go-between. You're the middle person between me and NDIS. So I asked around. I have a family member in Western Sydney. Her sister-in-law got a job as team leader for the LACs in the western part of Sydney. And I asked my family member, well, what qualifications or experience did she have to work with people with disabilities? And she said, well, none. All she's ever worked for was on the front desk at Centrelink. So a receptionist from Centrelink gets to go in as a team leader for LACs. That's outrageous. How could the NDIS, how could the government put people like that in charge who have no qualifications, no experience in working with people with disabilities, or any understanding on what their needs and requirements are? I spoke to numerous people, different LACs. One used to work for the tax office. One used to be a cleaner who used to come to my house and clean when she was a support worker. These are the sorts of people who are in a position to act on our behalf. And for me, that's not on. When I spoke to my doctor about the anxiety attacks I was having, I literally couldn't breathe. You know, you probably all know what it's like when you dive underwater and you leave it a bit long and you come up racing up and put your head above water and you suck that lungful of air in because you run out of breath. That's what I was doing for weeks, sucking air into my lungs, like just anxiety because of the NDIS and the way I was treated. It's not on. And like I said before, the NDIS is the greatest gift that people with disabilities has ever been given in this country. And I don't think there's anything like it around the world anywhere. So we are really lucky to have it. But as lucky as we are to have something like this, to have morons in positions that they shouldn't have because they have to employ someone to fill those positions, it's not on. It makes people who are vulnerable with disabilities at a higher risk, being more vulnerable, making their life way harder than it already is. It's not on. I know I told the NDIS, I rang them up. I said, look, I've had 6 LACs in 18 months. I want nothing to do with them. I'm not going to use them. I'm not going to talk to them. Oh, well, you have to. That's the rules. There they go between. You have to talk to them. I said, well, no, actually, I don't. I refuse to. I've had 6 LACs in 18 months. None of them helped me, not once. So they caved in and gave me a COS, coordinator of support. She's been absolutely fantastic. She's been able to get me everything that I need So the first 3 years on the NDIS, 100% of the things I applied for, I was told no. Now I've got a coordinator of support. I'm finally getting the things that I need to support me in and around the home to get back out into the community.
Sorry,
You're right.
Jeff, we've got Phil Tyler's just joining us on the chat, and I've jumped into the chat as well. So,
Have you brought him up?
So just bring him up now.
Okay. Hi, Phil. How you going?
Good morning. How is everyone?
Yeah, we're good. Well, I'm good. I can't speak for Jeff. I can't speak for everybody.
Yeah, I'm doing well. You probably heard me rant. Listen, Phil, have you got YouTube open?
I have no idea. We were struggling. When I
Oh,
say
just
we, me and my boss, we just clicked on now. We were struggling to do what we've done. We've never done this system before. It's normally Zoom. We just click and that's it.
Yep, no, that's it. No, just there was a bit of feedback, but I think it was my end. So no, that's okay. You heard a bit of my rant leading up,
No,
coming in.
no, we just got on now.
Just got on.
I just heard that previous gentleman say about 100% with the coordinator. Was that you? Was it?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yes, I did hear the end of that. Yes.
Yeah. So basically, the first 3 years, everything I applied for, 100% of it was knocked back. I was never given any reasons other than the talking microwave. I refused to have anything to do with the LACs. They told me I had to. I said, no, I don't. I refuse. And that's when they caved in and gave me a coordinator, and she's been fantastic. She's got me everything that I need. She's been really good. So what are your experiences, Phil?
I joined when it started here in Tamworth, and my first package was in today's term over the top. Now, it was about $50,000, and it went by the wayside because I had no education on how to use it or get the benefits. Pardon me, except for the guide dog. The guide dog, which I already have, they've looked after continuously. But with assistance of a guide dog, Jenny Croker, that was here in Tamworth, we tried our best to get access to an iPhone to assist me, and we continually knocked back. I wrote to members of Parliament, wrote to the NDIA, knocked back, wouldn't do it. So I just bought the bloody thing out of consumables and they accepted it.
That's absolutely, yeah. I had the same thing, and they say it's an everyday item. Well, for someone who's blind or vision impaired, it's not an everyday item. It's a multi-purpose tool.
And necessary.
Absolutely necessary to regain or keep your independence. Absolutely, 100% correct. I agree.
And safety.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's and this is the thing. People are making up these rules. Don't have a disability. They don't know anyone with a disability or have had very little contact with a person with a disability. And these are the people who are making up the rules.
So,
you're right.
Through the COVID period, the LAC I have now, which I have no problem with, it's good. The NDIA was saying I didn't spend money on some of the things that were in my plan, and the ridiculous part about it was we were locked down. Cleaners weren't allowed to come to the house. Anyone outside the house weren't allowed to come either. So they come to their senses, which you're probably aware of, that because of COVID, they just extended everyone's plan for the following year. But I'm sure there was a lot of wasted expenditure in that to and froing and back and forwards.
Yeah, look, with COVID, when everyone was stuck at home, I got access to a couple of things that were based on the internet that I would not normally get access to. But because of that extension, I was able to access it because we're literally stuck at home.
Yeah, and
You
I
know,
did learn about Zoom in that period.
Yep. Yeah, and that's the thing. We're not taught on what we can apply for. We're not taught on how to use the funding. You know, in different ways we can access the funding that we've got. And I know we are so lucky to have this in this country. Yeah, like I said just before you come on, I went on the disability pension in 1990, and up until I got my coordinator support, I just sat around the house.
Yeah,
You know,
when I was diagnosed, I went on the virtually forced on to the blind disability pension, and it was my pride and stubbornness that didn't get me to ask for help until it got to a point I needed it. I look back now, I'm disappointed in myself that I didn't ask for help or accept the help earlier while I still had some sight left.
yeah, yeah, and that's always pride and the loss of independence. It's the huge things to overcome, but I think as good, as much as the NDIS has helped, we have people in positions that have no experience, and that's one of my big bugaboo because there's so much inconsistency. One person was allowed to get a talking microwave, but I wasn't allowed to have it. One person was allowed to get, I don't know, one thing, another person couldn't get it. So some people are getting things on the NDIS, and other people's are being denied for the same device. So there's no consistency
That's
with
right.
the NDIS, and I put that down to unqualified and uneducated staff.
Yeah, I agree with that because in another forum that I'm involved with, there's some people with the same condition I have, the same level. They've been accepted for an ORCAM, but I've been rejected 3 times. They're not even interested in any further discussion. And pardon me, with the volunteer work I do, the AI function in the ORCAM would assist me because recognising faces without them having to say who's around the room, and any letters or correspondence reports. I don't know if you know about the ORCAM. It can capture the document and read it to me in my ear, while the rest of the people involved, the committee or whatever, can carry on with discussion. But I give up on it because I've been knocked back 3 times, so I've moved on.
Yeah, there's a bit of feedback. when I applied for the talking microwave, I was told I couldn't have it because they have staff who are vision impaired and they don't like the voice, and their family members don't like the voice, so you can't have it. And I said, well, what's that got to do with me?
Yeah.
When I did get it, the voice on it was sort of like old electronic voice. Wasn't terrible. I've heard a lot better, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah, and we put up with that with screen readers across the board. If you can't change it, you have to put up with it. But the only reason I wasn't interested in not unless they changed the talking microwave wasn't big enough for me. So
Yeah.
I just bought a microwave on consumables and got Velcro on it, and it's stuck on the favourite. If my boss wants to cook something else on defrost or anything else, well, she just uses the menu and puts it back to 100%, and I'm right.
Oh, that's good. That something's working out for you. I have a question for you. Have you used any services that have taken on too many clients?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I was using a service, and when I first met them, they were quite good, but they kept bringing on these new clients and not having the staff to cater for everyone, and all my regular times were getting cut back by an hour and a half, or not at all.
Yeah, well, my experience with cleaning, because I took it on so I could report back to the support group I do. And because of COVID, my services were being cancelled because they didn't have the staff. And then when I did get the staff, they were excellent until my second last one. They tried to rip me off, and that was the end of it. I just put in a written complaint. I put in my evidence and cancelled the contract. I said straight out to them, if they're game enough to rip me off, which is not a good idea, that means that they'd be ripping someone else off as well. So I said no.
That's fair enough. Yeah, I was using a service, Bright Sky, and they got really big really quickly. They never had the infrastructure or the staff to provide that service. I ended up putting in a complaint into the NDIS Complaints Commission, because when I tried ringing the company, the head office, there'd be an automated thing. Oh, press 1 for this, press 2 for that. So I pressed 2 to get to the reception. Then I go back to the main menu and then repeat the whole system. So they weren't even answering the phones. And
No, well, I didn't.
I couldn't even place any orders for weeks. And I run out of supplies, and I was scrambling. I nearly had to go borrow some off some friends who have similar issues.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that the company that I got rid of wasn't the problem. It was the person that tried to rip me off. I just because otherwise, except for the lack of staff with COVID, it was the person that billed me. I got an invoice for 2 hours when she was only here for 1 hour, and I just wouldn't put up with it.
I've had similar issues with the service provider before the one I had before, the one I have now. They turn up 10, 15 minutes late, and finish 20, 30 minutes early. So they're
Don't bill
basically
you for
getting,
the full time.
yeah.
Well, I got one of my group members, Jeff, another Jeff. He tells them before they start to look up at the front of the house, and he says, "Camera, time."
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, every time I access the service for the first time, I say, look, with my disabilities and my health issues, I might have to ring up 5 minutes beforehand and cancel. And the previous service provider got really upset by this, and they actually cancelled my service. They didn't give me an opportunity to go into mediation to resolve any issues or anything. They just straight out cancelled it.
uh,
And it was against their own contract. So yeah, I'd try and steer people away from that organisation. Now they're terrible. They used to be good. They just got money hungry, I think. They brought on new clients all the time, but never had the staff. And I thought it was terrible. I really did, but
the,
not
major-
everything. Sorry.
the majority of the support group I run here, the members are using United, and we're all happy with it. So I'm going to give them a bell and give them a try. Pardon me.
You put your hand up when something's bad, and you also put your hand up when something's good. You let them know.
Yes, I do.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same. But the NDIS, since I've had my coordinator support, it's worked really well for me. I've done more in the last 2 years than I've done in the last 35 years.
Well,
So,
I'm going to apply through the LAC that I have. I think it's line 7 I have to apply for to have a plan coordinator assist me in my next plan.
yeah, I had a person from the NDIS come to my home to do my next plan. And she's sitting there, she's got all my information laid out in front of her, all, personal information, only information that I know and my doctors know. And I just said to her offhandedly, I said, if you don't mind me asking, what qualifications do you have for this job? And she said, I'm not going to talk about my private life. And I went, hang on, you've got my entire life laid out in front of you.
Mm.
I'm only asking you if what qualifications that you got. And she refused to answer. So there's got to be accountability. If we're going to deal from people with from the NDIS, I think we have the right to ask those questions. What qualifications do you have? What experience do you have?
I agree with that.
Because some people are in there that shouldn't be there.
Before COVID, I always had someone from Guide Dogs and VA with me. And the LACs didn't have a problem with it. It didn't make me get any more or any less, but they were there to assist. Because I don't know which way you manage it, but I'm say 80% or 90% self-managed. I just let guide dogs do their bit and VA do theirs.
I must admit, I let my coordinator support handle most of it. We talk about my plan, then she deals with them because I just get too frustrated with them. Just their attitude sometimes is not the best.
Was there anyone else online with us?
I'm not sure, Chris.
I'm online, but the problem is I'm near Jeff, so when I turn my mic on, he gets a bit of feedback. So it causes a bit of an issue. My name's Chris. Hi, Phil. How you going?
Nice to meet you. I'm going good. I'm dry for a change.
Oh, it's been a bit wet, hasn't it? It's very soggy.
Even the frogs are getting bogged in our backyard.
Yeah, I know. I went and fed the chooks. I could see exactly where I went on the way there. It was.
Yeah,
I almost had to swim my way back.
Yeah, I'm in Tamworth on 2 acres, and the grass is growing faster. I'm blind and I can see it grass.
Yeah, right.
But
Do we have anyone in chat down below?
No, we don't have anything in the chat
It's
at the
just the two
moment.
of us. That's okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting too many people today, being the
Yeah.
first time.
yeah, well, I'm going to pass it on to my other group.
That would be
Yeah.
good. Yeah. The more
Yeah,
people that we know, the better.
Yeah, I got I'm coordinator of a guide dog vision impaired group, only for people with RP, and they're all on the NDIS. So we have another Zoom meeting next Wednesday, so I'll pass it all on to them and leave it up to them if they want to join in.
Yeah, no, that'd be good. I want this to be. You just put yourself on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. I want this channel to be a platform for everyone with a disability to talk about things that affect them. I wanted to come here and talk about whatever they want in a safe environment. I think it's really important that we all support each other, all types of different disabilities. And it's also an opportunity for people who don't have a disability to come along and have a listen to see what we talk about.
And learn something.
Learn something. And also doing interviews. I've done a couple already. I've interviewed Cindy, who has MS. I've posted that up there on my channel this morning. She talks about all of her experiences. I've interviewed someone who uses a wheelchair. I'm just waiting for him to say it's okay to put up on the channel. So if you know somebody who has a different type of disability other than being blind or vision impaired, I'll be interested in doing an interview with them.
Yeah, I before COVID, I was part of the Tamworth Access group, which has folded because of lack of support. But I campaigned for an injustice through spinal cord injuries with the support of spinal cord injury. We had an election, be 3 or 4 elections ago, and the election booth in Pearl Street was in a building that had 3 steps to get in, and wheelchairs couldn't fit. So the people in wheelchairs had to vote out in the street. We assisted them, and we blew up about it and said it's discrimination plus lack of privacy, independence. That just wrong. And we got it closed down.
Yeah,
that polling booth, we got it closed down. They had moved it where there was access.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, our access committee was dismissed when our council was suspended by the Premier. You probably heard about that in the news.
Yes.
Yeah. I waited about 18 months until the suspension was lifted. Then I started lobbying council to re-establish it, and we've only just got it going. And after the first lockdown, the second lockdown happened and we couldn't meet. And the new council said we couldn't have any more meetings until they resolved their issues. So we
Yeah, well,
just
here in Tamworth, the council withdrew support for when it was established. There was a councillor or a council representative to turn up, and there was a council representative to take the minutes, and we were still allowed to use the community centre room free of charge. But it was the lack of support that turned people away, turned the volunteers away, and it had to fold. So now I represent that group on the Tamworth Ratepayers Association.
Yeah, well, I sort of, like I said, I lobbied behind the scenes for about 2 years to get the Access Committee up here re-established.
That's good.
Yeah, so we have our first meeting again on the 3rd of next month. It was funny. I did a radio interview a few weeks ago because the movie theatre up here now has audio description service, which was really good, and I was just promoting it. And the lady doing the interview, she was a councillor who's been around for a long time, and she referred to me as an activist because I took our council to human rights for clear, accessible path of travel around the CBD for people who have disabilities, especially people who are blind or vision impaired and use a long cane.
Maybe a freedom fighter, Jeff.
Yeah.
Just to jump in there quickly, we've got a comment on here. Adam Morris has put in a comment saying, I've heard that in the last few months, Orcams and other devices are being approved more easily.
I'll take that on board. Thank you.
I think I have heard, so you get some background, Phil. I was caring for my wife, and then later, I'll put you on mute mic just for a sec, Jeff, so you don't get the feedback. Is that better?
Yeah.
So Phil, I was looking after my wife for a long time, and then I eventually became a support worker. So I've sort of had both sides of the fence, and I have seen the response to Adam's comment is that I keep hearing reports about things getting better. I know when the system first started, it was absolutely atrocious, and it took we'd be looking at needing equipment. My wife had a degenerative disease, and by the time the funding came through for the equipment, then she degenerated to the point that the equipment needed review. So you had things that would then take 12 months before they came through, and then it was just it was all a bit of a disaster. So it seems to be that it's improving a bit, but there's still a lot of problems, and there's a lot of delays, and it can be a real issue.
Yeah. And with the media and the government putting out the information that the NDIS is blowing out by near $9 billion, I think they're putting it out there in a roundabout way that they're going to cut some services, which will be disappointing.
I would like to know exactly how much money from the NDIS is going to support workers and other professionals such as guide dogs, Vision Australia, OTs, etc. Not just saying, people with disabilities are getting $22 billion worth of free stuff, because that's not the case. The overwhelming majority of the funding, I would assume, is going to support workers. I have support workers 4 days a week.
Yeah. Well, what I'd like to find out is how much the NDIA costs us, the people at the top, because I'm sure they're taking a fair chunk out of it.
Yeah, and I know there have been people with disabilities who have rorted the system as well. There was a person in south of Sydney who purchased a couple of mobility scooters, kept one and sold the others. So nothing happened to that person, which I think they should have been made to repay that money.
I agree.
And laid charges should have been laid. That's fraud.
Yeah,
It's
that's
fraud.
fine that way, but I still believe that the NDIS with their call centres and the hierarchy at the top that make these decisions, I bet they're on good wages.
Well, I wouldn't mind them taking good wages if we had, NDIA staff that were qualified and educated or have a lot of experience working with people with disabilities. It's 9 times out of 10 when I ring up the NDIA, I've asked questions that they haven't been able to answer. And if they had that education or that experience, they would have been able to answer those questions, like the difference between being blind and vision impaired, and the things that Chris was talking about. It's not on. It's just, I think it's a huge, huge oversight. I think the NDIS, technically, theoretically, it's a great idea. I think it was rushed out by the Labor government at the time. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate the NDIS and all the things I've been able to get the last couple of years. My life has improved dramatically.
I agree.
And I'm not complaining about that. I'm just complaining about NDIA staff not having the qualifications and work experience.
And the process, because it's taken me and my boss's name is Karen, by the way, everyone listening. It was a nightmare trying to navigate the MyGov site with the NDIS. And before I lost my sight, I managed a fair budget in the millions. So I have a diary for every year I've been on the NDIS. They're tucked away in a cupboard. So if I'm ever audited, I have the proof. They can lose their digital proof. They can say this, that, whatever. But I can hand over the diaries, and that's where all the receipts, all the information, everything is there.
Yeah, and just going back to what Adam said about those cameras being more available, they should have been available from the very start. If you're blind or got a severe vision impairment and you need facial recognition or something to read out a document for you, it should be a given.
Yeah, but it was $7,000, and that's where they balked at it, in my case. However, the reason I pursued it was a member of my group, a friend of mine, Jeff, that I spoke earlier. He was in the financial situation where he bought his own, and then he was. We were going up and down the Peel Street, letting me use it, and I saw the benefit. I know that's a silly thing to say when I'm blind, but I saw the benefit of it in practice. And it'd be nice if some of these people that make decisions had a go at walk in our shoes type thing. I respect Gunnedah Council and Mudgee Council. They have a day each year where they put business people and councillors in the position of people with a disability. They put blindfold on someone to walk down the street, or they put someone in a wheelchair, and so that they go down the main street and figure out how difficult it is. I tried it 3 or 4 times with this council here, and none of them have participated. Not one of them.
Yeah.
I'll just jump in there quickly. I think this is a really good point, because we had a plan review once by someone who'd, the week before, they were working in Department of Tax, and we had for my wife, we had, a high level of care and a whole range of different processes that were involved, and they were reviewing it, and they said, all right, now we'll start off with hoists. So can you explain what the process is involved? And I said, well, to what detail do you need? What do you know about a hoist? And they said, well, I don't know anything about a hoist. So how big is it? How does it operate? And it's like, we were trying to judge how many staff we had to have. There were workplace health and safety issues. There were safety issues for my wife. There's all sorts of function issues around how we had a static hoist as well as a mobile hoist. So it's sort of like, well, I said to the person, well, I don't know where to start, because if you've never been on a site, if you've never been in a care situation, I can't explain all of the different factors that are involved in that situation. And we sort of came to a real standstill. We had some advocates there who were helping us out. There was an occupational therapist, and there was one of the heads of one of the care agencies there with us as well. And you just sort of go, it's just a very frustrating situation, because you need to have people who have real insights. And when you have people who have no insight at all, then you just sort of just go, well, I don't know where to start.
I agree, and that's why I commend Mudgee and Gunnedah Council for they do it in the main street, where not only do the councillors and members of parliament participate, or business houses, the residents get to see the spectacle, and it's a different way of spreading the information.
Yeah, well, the Access Committee up here, we've had that Adopted Disability Day with council since the 90s, and that lasted all the way up until the amalgamation between Armidale and Guyra councils, where all the committees were then put off, and that actually then stopped. So, here in Armidale, we've been doing Adopted Disability Day for council since the 90s, and it does work well. But what Chris was saying is a perfect point of what I've been trying to hammer through to the NDIA. You can't employ people to assess someone with a disability who knows nothing about the disability.
Yeah, no experience in the sector. I agree.
No, absolutely. And that's the thing. So you've got someone, no education, no experience, assessing someone with a disability on the things that they need. Then they put it in, a recommendation in, and it gets denied, and you've got to go through the whole process of lodging a complaint and going up to the tribe. I've done that. It takes a long time.
Yeah.
And it's so demoralising and degrading. It makes life way harder than it needs to be, already is for a lot of people with disabilities.
Well, it's also, if they're stressed for funding, then that's a really inefficient process. So for every person whose wages are being paid for that process, then, if they want to try and spend less money, then that's not a very efficient way to do it either.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and there's another, continue on to both what you both just said. I've noticed over my time, because I've been volunteering for guide dogs and VA for more than 15 years, that the genuine staff get demoralised where they can't do the support that the client needs. They leave, and I believe over the last 5 or 6 years that a lot of good staff have left the industry because they couldn't do what they saw was necessary.
Yeah, I have to agree with that, Phil. I think that's absolutely correct. Look, the NDIS is great, but it needs to be fixed up, and the only way to fix it up is listen to the people with disabilities.
Yeah.
Don't listen to the people who are being employed by the NDIA because they're just saving their own jobs. You know, when I first went onto the NDIS and I asked for a couple of my things that I requested, they, with the talking microwave, you put, braille dots on. I've done that. Or have you tried doing? I tried everything. Nothing worked.
Yeah.
But I still had to get an OT, 2 different OTs, to write up a report to tell them the exact same thing that I'd already told them in the first place.
At $194 an hour.
Yeah, and so they want to save money. Yeah, look at that. Look at that issue. There's a lot of problems that the NDIA has that could be fixed just by listening to the people with disabilities. Listen to your clients. Just because you have a disability, you're not stupid, you're not slow. We do know what we're talking about.
Pardon me. I'd like to give some manufacturers a kick in as well, because I put up with an oven for about 10 years because I was searching for a new oven that had, knob controls on it instead of touchpad.
Yes.
And I never changed the oven until I found one. And if business houses, maybe the government could stir up manufacturers to go back to the old days, like my washing machine. I've got
how often do you find those are twice the price because they're labelled as accessible, even though it's got the old knob which has been used for the last 50 years?
Yeah, but I agree with that. But actually, forget what I just said. You just stirred me up something terrible with. As soon as you mention medical or for the disabled, you're right. The price just skyrockets. If you want a magnifier for the disabled, it's $1 and if you want a fancy computer with a camera on it, it's about $1,500. It just drives me mad.
Yeah. Look, it's a problem, and it has been for a long time. There's a company here in Armidale who gouge people, with their prices just because they say they put a disability sticker on it or an accessible sticker on it and then whack the prices up 30%.
My wife Karen says to me, "Don't say it's a wedding, otherwise they'll put the price up."
And that's the thing. And when people talk about making things accessible, they say, when I was talking to the India, they have all this staff who were, in their 20s, who's grown up with the technology. I'm 59 in a few months. I didn't grow up with the technology, so my skill levels compared to someone half my age is vastly different, but yet I'm still being assessed on what they can and can't do, not what I can and can't do. You know what I mean?
With that. Yeah, I do, because I've got an 8-year-old grandson that I get off the bus every day, and he can run the rings around anyone with the digital stuff. I'll back him with anyone.
So that's one of the issues again with the NDIS. They have staff with disabilities who are a lot younger grew up technology, and they had it just comes naturally to them. But it doesn't matter, if you're 50 or 60 or 70, they still compare your skill level to someone who's grown up with that technology. And they say, well, why don't you know how to do this? Nobody's ever taught me. I've never been able to afford that.
And as well, when you do get help from younger people, they go too fast. They expect you to pick it up instantly, whereas I have to practice. I've got a couple of good IT people. They'll give me some homework and I'll just sit there and practice and practice and practice till I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah, repetition.
Yeah.
That's how we learn, it's repetition. But, as good as the NDIS, it still has a long way to go before it's, really aimed at and targeted towards all disabilities and all skill levels, not just everybody should know this or everybody should have this. Like everybody should have an iPhone because, it's an everyday item, so you can afford. I can't afford iPhones.
But I think, Phil, as well, as something good that you raised there with having, finding some staff that are really, like some IT people that are really helpful with you, is to balance out what we were saying before. I think I have found in the industry, like there's sort of two breeds. There's the people who might do the price gouging and things, but there's also some fantastic service providers who are really personally invested. They go above and beyond the call of duty.
Oh, yeah.
They do a lot of stuff that they're not paid for. They try and find affordable solutions for people who are living on a disability pension. That means that they might not be able to afford to do other things, to afford to do things otherwise. And there are a lot of people. I know that the organisation I work for, the reason I work for them is because they are personally invested, and most of the people they really do everything that they can to help the people they're working with and to create a very positive environment. So there are those people. I have occasionally met people in the NDIS who are, they're really invested people as well. But it's, it needs to be it needs to be more consistent, I think, across the board, so that you don't have, as Jeff mentioned earlier, this sort of patchwork where you've got, two people with this very similar circumstances who are getting vastly different levels of service.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Where are you at?
Chris is in Armidale. He's one of my support workers.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say where I'm working at. I don't want to be representing
no, it's all right.
Representing the views of the company, but
no, that's not what I meant. No, I meant the area, because you may know who I'm about to say. Jenny Croker used to work for Guide Dogs, and she put her whole heart and soul into that. And it was the NDIS. She was so frustrated where she couldn't help her clients, she left. Simple as that.
She got burnt out.
Yeah, and
that's what happens.
She's working at the university up there. She won't have a problem with me saying that.
No, I had Jenny for years. Beautiful young lady.
Yes.
Very patient. Great.
And
she put
committed. She was committed. As Chris just said, they put in extras.
Yeah, and they do that, but because they do that, they get burnt out. And then they leave. Then, we struggle to find someone that can actually replace what she was providing. It's a hard thing, especially in regional areas like Sydney and Newcastle and Wollongong get far more services than people in regional rural areas do.
Yes. And now that Gloria's left, she's retired, we got no one here in Tamworth now with Guide Dogs. No one at all.
It doesn't surprise me. See, and like, did you know Jeremy from Coffs?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
up in
he went to
Brisbane now.
Queensland.
He's in
Yeah.
Brisbane. Another great worker gone because of the restructure, because of the NDIS.
Yeah, Matt Woods is gone.
There's a lot of people, a
Yeah.
lot of great service providers gone because of the NDIS. A lot of, they don't want to deal with it. It's too hard for them. And because people with disabilities rely on those support workers, they just get burnt out and they leave. So it's a catch-22. It really is.
Pardon me. Yeah, I agree.
It's like the amount of different services people in Newcastle, Sydney, and Wollongong get, because they've got the population. There's a lot more services to choose from, but up here you don't have the amount of services that those people in those areas do. And I know the service that I use, Arema, they're not alone in this. They're struggling to find workers. They're struggling to find people to do support work. They really are, and that's right across the board. So I just don't know what the solution is as far as getting enough people up in regional, rural areas to be support workers. Armidale's a great. You probably say the same thing about Tamworth. Armidale's a great place to live. 99% of this community is fantastic. I know I go down town if I get disorientated. I just say, "Is anybody there and need help?" Somebody would always walk over and offer a hand. In Sydney, they just shoulder barge you out the way. They don't care, But anyway, I think the NDIS, they need to be more consistent. They need to look at things like iPhones. Either people love them or hate them. I love my iPhone.
I can't do without mine.
Yeah, for me, it's a multi-purpose tool. I use the LiDAR for location, detection sort of thing. I've got about 4 pages of apps that I use.
Yeah, I use what's it called? Maps Outdoors, and it's great. Yeah. Maps outside. Envision AI. I use that. I don't use Seeing AI anymore. Envision AI is brilliant.
It is TapTapSee, Seeing AI, Ira. I think they're not as popular as they once used to be.
No, you got to pay for that, so I don't use it. I know the first 5 minutes is free, but no, I don't use it.
Oh, you can get funding under the NDIS for it. So I know that.
But Envision AI, I don't use Seeing AI anymore. It's just so much better for me. I just love it. And the mapped outdoors, that's all I do. I just turn it on, walk down the street. It tells me where I am, what the next cross street is. It's good.
I have a Trekker.
Yeah, I've got a Trekker too. Yeah.
Don't like it. Do not like it. I had a fall last year, broke my hip, and got a rod put in, and blah blah blah. And now I walk quite slow by myself, and because I walk so slow, the GPS is not accurate. So I can put a landmark on one side of the street, on the other side of the street, another landmark in a similar area, and they both go off at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you know, they're accurate to like 10 metres, but
they don't update the maps the way they used to. And the only accident I've ever had was because either vandals or council didn't put barricades around a trench that I fell into. That was a fair while ago.
Yeah. Just getting back to the NDIS, I didn't get to see the budget the other night. I'm assuming they're going to start trying to cut funding back, I suppose. I don't know.
I watched it last night. I know that sounds strange. I watched it, but I couldn't see it. I was listening to the TV and then the analysis after it. No, they're going to do Bill Shorten's going to do a review of the providers and administration to see where they can cut costs.
Look, they need to have auditors going around, and I'll tell you why. I needed a deck out my back door because there's a big step down and I struggle with it, getting in and out. Now, I got 2 quotes. I told one person I was going to get it done under the NDIS, and I told the other person I was paying for it myself. Now, the person who I told I was doing it, paying for it ourselves, came back in with a quote of 7,500, and the bloke who did the quote under the auspice of getting it paid for by the NDIS come back just over 15,000.
Yeah.
Those sorts of things need to be audited. Also, I've got a friend who had his bathroom done up. It was approved because of his issues. They paid the contractor everything up front, and my friend couldn't get the person to come back and finish the job properly. You know, the handrails were not installed correctly. The shower screen wasn't installed correctly. The tiles wasn't done correctly. It took him 6 months, I think, to get the contractor to come back, and that was only threat of lodging a complaint to the NDIS.
Yeah.
The contractor came back and finished it off.
In my case, I'm in a fortunate position where I was in the civil construction industry before I lost my sight, but mates of mine here in Tamworth, they do any steel work for me and I pay them, then I claim it back through the NDIS. So I haven't had a problem that way.
But that's the thing, like those sorts of jobs, why are they paying it all up front? You know, and by doing that, you know, it's hard to get them back to fix up any mistakes. Those sorts of things need to be audited. They need to have someone to go around and make sure that the contractors are fulfilling their part of the contract, their obligations.
Yeah, and I understand that. Yeah.
And don't pay them 100% up front.
Well, you don't do that if you're building the house.
No, exactly.
You do progressive payments, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what the NDS needs to do, and that needs to be streamlined. But you don't go up and pay someone 100% up front. Those sorts of jobs, those costings, they need to be audited because, like you and Chris and I have said, they whack the prices up.
Yeah.
Because it's under the NDIS and it's for accessibility. Those sorts of things need to be audited.
I think wistfully thinking as well, something that would have been better for that is when the NDIS was set up, because state governments are more used to dealing directly with service providers. So if it had it so the NDIA managed policy to make sure that the service delivery across the whole country was consistent, but then it was actually the state government that managed the service delivery and managing contracts, because they already had those infrastructures in place. The state government's much more used to dealing directly with service providers. That probably would have been a much better way to do it, because then, you know, state government could have come in and had an auditing process and things. Something like the federal government is not, it sort of works on a much higher level. It's not really geared to doing that kind of work, which I know that it can do. And people like the place like Centrelink that are dealing directly with people and service providers. But it's there were already structures in place because everything was being managed by the state government previously. Then that might have been a better solution, and there wouldn't be quite so many problems and issues with people price gouging, and they could have had, you know, state government probably already has measures in place where they can make sure that there's consistent billing through service providers, because they use them so much more than the federal government does, that usually deals with stuff purely on a policy level.
That's correct, mate. Well said. Yeah, you got, for example, what used to be work cover, now it's work safe. That they're in the business of keeping a check on everyone. Yeah, well done. Yeah, good idea.
And it's common sense. Like I said, listen to the people with disabilities. You know, listen to the people who are on the ground working with people with disabilities. You know, we do have answers for the problems. Don't have some high-paying person paying another high-paying person to try and save money. It doesn't work. So anyway, but is there anyone in chat, Chris? Okay.
Yeah, no more chats have come up yet.
Okay.
Well, I've got one last question. There's issues. This is to poke holes in the NDIA. I'm sure they've got a lot of issues that they're working very hard to try and resolve. From here, you know, you can think wistfully about maybe if they'd managed maybe if they'd included state governments in different ways, that would have been better. But where from here do they go? How do they could set up a process where they try and regulate the rates that people are getting per hour, but that sort of doesn't really work, because you have a cleaner who comes in and they say, oh, well, our rates are $45.15 or whatever it is per hour, but then a cleaner comes in and charges a flat rate, and it all becomes a bit of a disaster. How do they go from here to manage and regulate themselves better, and the service providers within the industry, so that the ones that are doing price gouging are being pushed back, and the ones that are genuinely doing a really good job and trying to make a living providing the best service they can don't end up getting pushed out by the government trying to tighten the reins and reduce the expenditure.
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt if some services were GST exempt. Pardon me. Because you can, cleaner comes in here and we have to supply the products, or the cleaner has to turn up in a vehicle. They're paying fuel, which is the fuel tax, and they're just taxed and charged where there could be room for some exemption for people that work in the disability industry.
Yeah, I think this is the where it comes under the auspice of everyday items. And just if a person with a disability lives in their house, regardless of the supports they have, they're still going to have to buy those items anyway. So
yeah, I was only using it as an example. There must be room, because food is fresh food is GST exempt, and
I don't think removing some taxes on things is the answer. It's we still have to buy the same things as everybody else does to clean the house and
but if you think about, say, guide dogs will be in Australia or spinal cord injuries, across the board, they'd be paying a lot of money in GST on running the business. If some of those businesses, I suppose, if you like guide dogs is classed as a charity, so they're probably not paying it anyway. But
they still claim it back in their tax. That's the workers.
I think some of the places that are doing the wrong thing are non-government organisations. They're not-for-profit organisations and things already, but they work out all the legal loopholes so that they can, pay themselves really good wages and get a lot of fringe benefits. I know places that have done that kind of thing where they end up, the people who own the business end up getting all kinds of benefits and ways that they can
rot the system.
Rot the system effectively, yeah. And how do you pull it all back in line? I know with the Royal Commission that's happened recently, even with that, there's a lot of people who are worried about if they make a complaint against a service provider, then they're going to be marginalised, especially when you're in a country area where you don't have that much choice and everybody knows everyone else. Is that they're really afraid that if they say anything, that they're going to end up getting into trouble. And when you're looking at people who've lived with disabilities their entire life, they're used to being marginalised. They are used to being at the bottom end of the pecking order, bottom of the food chain. So, they're quite rightly justified and concerned about end up being marginalised because they're expressing views about things not being done right. And when they see people that are rotting the system, they just go, well, I'll just keep quiet and keep my mouth shut. There'll be one or two people who stand up and try and champion for them, but the vast majority of them are just they're already behind the eight ball. So you need to have better oversight, I think, is really what it comes down to. Better oversight and review. Have maybe inspectors who do random checks, who turn around to any service provider in any service environment, who can just turn up at any point in time and say, what is going on here? And are people doing the right thing? Because I can't think of any other way to make it so that it would work better. And if more people were doing the right thing, there would be more money to go around. The system would be running more efficient. I mean, even if the NDIA had inspectors who were inspecting its own processes and making sure that people in their organisation as well were doing the right thing, that would cost money to have those inspectors. But I think that they would, because people would then be worried about being found out and there would be some culpability, then that would result in greater efficiencies and more money being spent in the right areas and less money being wasted.
Yeah, and what you said at the start, that the people feel marginalised and don't speak up. If there was a safety provision where people were safe if they were whistleblowers, if they had a place where they could complain about something not being right and no repercussions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, I've got to go shortly, so I want to tell you about a situation that happened before COVID. There's a lady that was here in Tamworth. She's gone down to the big smoke to go to university. She was in a motorised wheelchair that cost $42,000. And in the main street of Tamworth, where there's an inappropriate, pram ram we call them. Yeah, pram ram. Anyway, she rolled it. Anyway, she got all straightened up and the council wouldn't fix it. So they had to fix it themselves and they argued to get it fixed. But anyway, fast forward a couple of months, she was coming out of the Kmart Plaza in Tamworth here, and a delivery truck, what used to be a disabled car space but now it's a loading zone, hit the sign that says loading zone and damaged her wheelchair. She was all right, but damaged the wheelchair. She didn't have to argue or anything. The company fixed it straight away. That's the difference sometimes between private enterprise and council.
Yeah. Are you aware of that Snap Send Solve app, Phil?
Beg your pardon? What is it called? Snap?
Send Solve.
The council app. Yeah.
Yeah. I was using that years before this council would acknowledge it. I'd take pictures of low-hanging branches or uneven footpaths or access ramps that weren't meeting standards. That's a great tool to use.
Yeah, it is.
I use it all the time.
Yeah. No, but the area I'm speaking about, sorry to interrupt you, man. The area I'm talking about, they're not going to do anything about it because they're going to bulldoze, they being the council and the state government, they're going to bulldoze most of it, put in the university, take about 3 blocks away to put in the Performing Arts Centre, and they're not going to fix anything while excavators and trucks are going to be roaming up and down all the time. So they're just going to dodge along until it's all finished, and then they'll repair the roads and the footpath. Just the way it is.
Yep. Unfortunately,
because it's false economy if they put in a new footpath and then put a truck over it, it's going to break.
Yeah.
So, but they could do things. I'm not just a whinger. I put in submissions to council on the western side of Pearl Street to make it one way, to close off the eastern side when they do the demolition, and have the western side hot mix, not concrete footpath. It's hot mix the footpath like a shared cycle track. Have a line down the middle. Keep left. That's it. I got the traffic lights and the tactiles put in. I got that done.
Yeah, hot mix on a footpath. It's probably not a good idea.
It's better than tripping over broken concrete, man. Use mobile modifier. It's like the rubber mat that's in gyms and soft fall that's in parks. It's not stony bitumen like on the road.
Yep.
That's stuff made out of recycled tyres, isn't it?
Oh, there's a mixture of all those sand and oil products, yeah. Yeah, mobile modifier. When you drive on a section of road that's been done with it, you can't hear the outside noise. It's just quiet and smooth.
Yep.
I know it because that's the industry I used to be in. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's been good to catch up with you, Phil. It's been a while.
But with arguing with council, it took me 2 years to get the tactiles replaced in the Fitzroy Plaza here. It took me a little bit less time to put pedestrian lights and tactiles where they plan on doing the demolition. But the more I harass them, the more I seem to get things done.
Oh, I'll keep doing it then if that's what it takes. Keep doing it.
But I'm not always successful. I've been knocked back a few things, but I keep harassing them.
Well, the council up here just before the amalgamation, where council was dismissed and the administrator was put in until the amalgamation finished. They were working really well. they were the last 3 or 4 years that they were working really well. As you know, I took my Council Human Rights Commission. That whole process took nearly 11 years to get it clear, accessible path of travel around the CBD, because the businesses, kept opposing ideas in removing A-frame signs and display tables and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's wrong because it's 1.8 metres. It's council, it's state government law. It has to be a clear and safe passage. And if you ever look up the awards that Mudgee Council has got, it's a show pony of what you're talking about. No A-frames are allowed. No charities are allowed to put their tables up against the shoreline.
Because I like I said, went to human rights, and I also the council at that time was pooping its pants because they found out I had a barrister pro bono to go to the federal court. Because if they lost, not only would this council lose, every council would lose. So they said, we'll go and get our own expert legal advice. And it came back and said, if this goes to court, you are going to lose. So get rid of them, move them out. And that's what they did do. There's still no law saying that they have to be out 1.8 metres. There's no state or federal law.
1.8 metres, yeah.
That's only a recommendation. It's not a law. There's no law saying it has to be 1.8 metres.
Well, here in Tamworth, al fresco dining and stuff it is a council regulation that it has to be there.
Yeah, it's a regulation, but what I'm saying is there's no state or federal laws stating that fact that things have to be at 1.8 metres.
Yeah, I'll do some homework on it. I don't disbelieve you, but I'll do some homework on it because that's one of the wins we've had here in Tamworth.
Well, because when I eventually beat council and they moved all their stuff out, I think it was like 3 metres in the mall and 1.8 metres, or towards the curb on footpaths.
Pardon me.
I had people ringing up right on the East Coast, ringing up saying, are you the person who took your council to court to move the stuff out? And I would say, yeah, that was me. And they said, well, then, because you did that, now our council's doing it as well. So, it took nearly 11 years to get that done, from 2000 to 2011. It was like 2001 to 2011. So
Did you have support from a vision impaired person with a guide dog there?
No.
No. I thought I saw a dozen years ago. I thought when I still had some sight, a little bit of sight, I thought there was someone in Armidale with a guide dog that assisted in that process.
No. That was the Access Committee started it, and I followed through until it was done. There was I was the only one that was doing it. I had a friend of mine who used to work for Spinal Cord Injuries Australia years ago. He was helping.
Maybe what I'm talking about is a separate UN thing, because I do remember. Hang on, I'm going to sneeze. Pardon me. There was on Prime.
I was on Prime. I did a couple of interviews on Prime. I did have a guide dog in the early 2000s, but I couldn't use him because of my back. I got 8 crushed vertebrae in my back, and I couldn't hold on to him anymore. He was just too strong and too fast.
Mate, Yeah,
Maybe they had some
maybe
stock
what I'm
footage
talking
of you,
about
Jeff.
is the same. It's you.
Yeah, it would have been. I was on Prime a few times, did radio interviews. I was badly misquoted by the Armadale Express numerous times. I refused to talk to them. I actually rang up, who owns it? Northern Daily Leader?
Well, that's here in Tamworth. Yeah,
Uh,
probably the same old.
yeah, the company who owns I rang them up and complained because they were saying things that I never said, and they were telling me what I couldn't do as someone who was blind. And I lodged a complaint, and they come back and they said, "Oh, well, we've got the right to express our opinions," which I don't have a problem with. But when you post it out as being a fact, that's what I have a problem with.
Yeah, and if they put a quote mark on it.
Yeah, so I'd make a statement. They take one or two words out, put other words in that have similar meanings, but twisted the whole context of what I was saying.
They've done that to me a few times. The same as last year or the year before, we did blind bowls here in Tamworth, and the cameraman said the camera's off, and then when it went to air, it wasn't off at all.
Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, no.
And that was a good night actually, because a good day. We promoted blind bowls, and two blind men won.
Yeah, good on you.
We beat the sighted people.
Gloria, when we were doing this with council about getting rid of the A-frame signs, she'd come up here and she spent the night here and gave up her own time to talk to the council at that time, back in the early 2000s. And the way she was treated, Gloria, by the council, but not by all the council, by some of the councillors, I was embarrassed.
Yeah.
I was so embarrassed that they could treat, someone who gave up her own time to come and speak and let them, because she's an expert on O&M, and the way they treated her was absolutely atrocious. And I was so embarrassed that they could do that and get away with it. It was terrible. But anyway, that was like over 10 years ago. But
well, that's when I did the in conjunction with the Tamworth Access Group and the disability group. There was Guide Dogs Business Australia, spinal cord injuries. We did a pamphlet with a picture of me and my cane on the front and the regulations on the back. And that was dropped off and sent to everyone in business. We tried to get it put in the rate notice, but the council wouldn't do it. But
well, council's policies and procedures up here, that they've moved all those things out. But I've gone down there up until last year when I broke my hip. I was going down there. People are still doing it, and I went to council and I was saying, why aren't the rangers being proactive? Instead of being reactive, why aren't the rangers being proactive when they're going around giving people parking tickets?
Yeah.
And seeing things up against the shoreline? Go in and tell the businesses you can't do it. And that's one of the issues I still have with council.
I do, and Gloria did.
Yeah,
Gloria did all the time. And but funny thing is, before COVID, I was well, it's more than 6 years ago because I've had my guide dog for 6 years. I was going down Pearl Street with my cane and I crashed into a chair that someone had left out. And the person at the coffee shop said, sorry about that, but we can't do anything now because the Rotten Council stopped us from putting it here. And I said, no, they didn't. I did.
I went to Tamworth. I had to go see a specialist in Tamworth about a year ago. My wife and I went to this cafe. It was up the top end of Peel Street, and this little cafe. And I walked in with sighted guide, and I sat down and folded my cane up, and the lady walked up and handed me a menu with braille on it. And I thought this is fantastic. I said, this is a great thing that you're doing. I didn't have the heart to tell her I can't read braille, but the sentiment was.
Yeah, that's another thing we did about 5 years ago. The access group, and Hog's took it on first. Ruby's and restaurant cafe thing that's not there no more. It had a quilting shop in the back of it.
Yeah.
There's a couple of others that have got it there, but I got to give credit. Hog's was the first one. They just did it.
See, Armidale and Tamworth Access Committees, they're the ones that started off the regional access committee. Remember when all the councils in the area, the access committee used to get together like once or twice a year?
No.
Remember that?
No, because I probably wasn't here then.
Well, Armidale and Tamworth Access Committee started the regional access committee off. Unfortunately, when the amalgamation happened and they got rid of the access committee here, and when the Tamworth committee folded, the regional access committee folded. But it'd be good to look into re-establishing that in the future.
I will try that. I definitely will. I need to find people to be on the board again, which is easy enough. Just advertise if we can get it started again, and ask for expressions of interest to be on the committee.
Yeah,
because the people that were there that have left, they were too hurt by all the effort they put in for volunteers.
Yep.
And then ended up lack of support from council.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not good. It's a slap in the face to all the. That's what I said. That's what I said to our current council. I said, with me and another committee member, Steve Austin. Steve Austin was on the access committee from the 80s right up until 2016, 17, when the amalgamation happened. That's what I said to this council, just between him and I, we've got over 60 years experience in access issues and knowing the Australian standards. And I said, if you keep ignoring us, we're just going to give up and walk away. Then you're going to have to spend tens of thousands of dollars for consultants to give you the same information we would have given you for free.
Yeah. And the 1418, 1428, those disability access Australian standards need updating because they're so out of date. It's not funny.
Yeah. Did you know, with the NDIS, when you have a plan management meeting, like plan review, I actually get my Victor Reader out and I actually audio record that. I rang up the NDIS and said, look, I want to record these meetings because I can't write down notes. So I want to record the meeting so I can go over and listen to it if I want to, make sure of what was said during the meetings. At first they said no, and I said, look, I can't write these things down. So if you're not going to allow me to record them for my own personal private use, and I'll make a statement that it won't be copied, distributed, or given out to anyone else, it's purely for me, then we can go through the DDA and go to court because you're not allowing me to be able to record it for my own records, and they fold it. So I record all NDIS meetings, plan reviews, and then even over the phone. They won't say no to you.
Yeah. The same as I haven't received any yet, but when you ring up a department that says this will be recorded for training and staff things, and if you don't want it, press something. I say, yeah. I press that, and then I say, I'm happy to have it recorded. Send me a copy.
Yeah, well, I tried that with I think it was Foxtel or Optus. I said I want the recording, and they said no, it's for our use only. And I said, well, you're making statements. Yeah, I said you're making statements. How do I know that's true? I want that recording. So I'll record everything now.
Yeah, good. Good.
It's just I've been burnt so many times, especially with the NDIS and the LACs. I record everything now. You're mad if you don't.
If you have the meeting in a public place, you haven't got to ask permission. Just record it anyway.
Yeah, I did that. There was the council just after the suspension was lifted. The council had a meet and greet down in the mall, and I went down there with a support worker, and I recorded it. Well, she recorded it for me, but I told the mayor, he made a statement prior, and I said, you're wrong. I rang up the local government association. They said you're wrong. I spoke to the administrator, and he was looking after the council. He said you were wrong. You're wrong. And you're the mayor, and you're wrong. And he asked, oh, well, I like to be wrong, he said. So, yeah. Unfortunately, I lost that recording, but I do recording out in public. But for anyone who's listening, if with the NDIS, you do have the right to record it, so long as it's for your own personal private use. And I strongly suggest that you do record it.
Yeah. Or have someone with you when you do the negotiation.
I always have witnesses, but it's always good to have the recording.
Oh, yeah. I was just adding that as an extra. I agree exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, I think if you don't record it, I think it's a huge mistake. I've learnt the hard way. Been burnt way too many times.
I've got to go. So nice to meet you all, Chris.
Yeah.
And anyone else that's listening. This is a new system for me that you're using. Is it easy enough to get out of it before I start tapping things?
What are you using?
Oh, it's whatever you're sending. I'm on an iPhone.
No, what are you using? An iPhone or computer or iPad?
Yeah, iPhone.
I can drop you off the stage if you want, Phil, so that way you won't be broadcasting anymore. If that makes it easy for you.
But
once you close it down, it'll stop straight away.
Yeah, just close your app, and that'll close it.
Right, just
swipe up.
There's nothing like Zoom where you go up the top and leave meeting.
There is a button. I'm just not sure.
It's not accessible.
There's a leave button. So if you swipe across, you'll have mic, cam, chat, more, and leave. So leave will shut it down.
Left or right?
I just shut down the app.
Yeah, closing the browser will work too.
Double tap and go aperture close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The home button, because I'm on an iPhone SE.
Yeah, so close it and 3 fingers swipe up to close the app.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Good talking to you.
Good to meet you, mate.
Thank you.
Okay, see ya. Is there anyone else in chat who might like to come up?
No, I've had a look. I think there's just us at the moment, Jeff.
Okay. What time is it?
So we're looking at, what's it, 11:26.
We'll probably call it quits there. It's 2 hours.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I was expecting. It's a bit yourself on mute. I was expecting. Well, I wasn't expecting too many people to turn up the first one. So I am not discouraged. I will be here again next Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. Chris will be here with me. The StreamYard app I use is accessible. The reason I'm using Chris is that I get on chat panels all over the world. Unfortunately, there are people out there called trolls who will come up and they want to come up in the chat. Instead of using their own face or an avatar, they'll put up an inappropriate picture, which is called porn bombing. So that's why Chris is in control of the stream, just in case that happens. So, all right, we'll leave it there for this week. Thanks, Chris. We'll see you again next Wednesday at 9:30. Awesome. Thank you.